for the 25th of June. Very nice to see you all. So shall we start with apologies for absence?
We've got apologies from Councillor Leach and Councillor Blackman. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome the new members of our committee. So Councillor Daniel, it's really nice to have you here. And there's a couple more. Councillor Leach, it's nice to have back on the committee. And I forgot your surname. Councillor West, it's very nice to have you here as my Vice Chair. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to say a special thank you to Councillor Johnson for her help and support, and to Councillor Elliott and Councillor Mann for all their work over the last year. Do we have any declarations of interest, please? I'm sure you'll let me know if something occurs to you as we go through the meeting. And do we have any items requiring urgent attention? I don't think we do. But we do have an item for the public forum, as far as I know. I can't see Councillor Mott, who is going to bring it forward. Councillor Sethcott. Are you going to read it out?
Rather not, it's quite long. But it's all been circulated. My mistake, sorry. It's fairly long, so it's been circulated. Whether it requires reading or not is entirely up to yourself.
Is everybody aware of this, or shall we read it out? No. Would you like to read it?
Not particularly, but I will. Okay. To whom it may concern, this letter is to highlight the multiple issues we have been having regarding our poor Wi-Fi service in the area. We are a farm near Lew Trenchard, Devon. Where we are located, there is limited signal. I think he means mobile signal there. So we are very much reliant on solid Wi-Fi connection for day-to-day running of the business, alongside personal use in the home, mostly for emails, downloading, streaming, and importantly, Wi-Fi calls. We have got very slow speeds at 2 to 5 megapixels per second. Since being here, we have had very delicate relationship with broadband. When it is working, it is slow, but it is just about usable. Other times, though, we have had several instances of connections dropping, sometimes up to 100 times a day. This has been confirmed to me by complaining to BT and trying to get BT OpenReach engineers to come and solve the issues on the line. This has also been in vain at times, though, where again, on several cases, they have solved the problem, and only days later, we are having to call back to restart the complaint. Full stop. We are in fact 6 weeks into a period of happenings and still not resolved fully, despite multiple engineering visits. Another frustration is with this directly is the price. Whilst we can accept that prices are generally set at a level of service and speed that is supposed to be provided, it doesn't seem hard to accept that when offered up to a maximum of 12 megabits per second, we are never actually getting near even half of this. Yet we are still charged the same rates as people in the more populated areas who are receiving much higher speeds. This as well as what I can only imagine it be a much more consistent service in terms of dropping connections, etc. Whilst there are other service providers around, we are stuck with using BT, as other providers will not offer any better, if any, service at all. And since it is OpenReach who come to fix the issues anyway, it seems simpler to use BT as the broadband provider, if only to give more persuasion to sort out the issue as a a direct customer, whilst we only have access to copper lines. The 2 paragraphs. Our area has been for several years now a part of connecting rural areas to fibre service through airband. Again, though this has been an absolute no avail, as part of the initial high presence of vans and engineers installing fibre cables all the way down to within 2 telegraph poles from the property, it has never actually been usable. This is despite calling and registering interest several times since it has been installed. I have always been told that they are testing the cables, but I know that this cannot be true given the time it's taken and lack of engineers around. I have also asked the BT engineers that came to solve issues with the copper cables that we are on currently if we could not move over to the fibre service. I was told it was not possible as it is not BT who owns the fibre lines. They have also told me that Airband are having issues as a company and are unlikely to provide us with the service anyway. If this is true, then it begs the question to why these cables are not taken over and used by another company so we can have a use of a service since the cable is already up, just short of being attached to the property itself. We are stuck in an incredibly frustrating and costly position. We are paying a high price for subpar copper line service. We are looking at fibre cables that cannot be connected to whilst being told that it is in our area. We have no mobile signal, so are in a tricky situation regards 4G mast or the massive expense of the likes of Starlink. And while seeing and hearing adverts for super high-speed fibre service of 1,000 megapixels plus megapixels, we are lucky to get day to push 5. Whilst these issues are personal to the property, I have attached a sheet of signatures and names of residents living along the same line to show the collective interest in receiving this service. Thank you for reading. Yours faithfully, Joshua England. And on the back page, we have last signatures.
Very much. Would you better pass on our thanks to Joshua for writing that?
I will do, yeah.
Please. And it's good to see the signatures. Could we have a copy of that for our records?
It can come in.
Yeah.
There's a plastic one that goes with it.
Thank you very much. I hear similar stories. It would be quite nice to hear your comments about broadband provision in West Devon. So without getting parochial, does the committee have any comments? Without getting too parochial, does the committee have any comments they'd like to make, please? Councillor Southcott?
I'm aware of other situations around the same area of the ward. I've even got family members on a farm that are having to use a router because the telephone wires are just pointless. It's a common problem out in the countryside.
Councillor Daniel?
We also suffer from Wi-Fi difficulties in my area. Apparently fibre is coming, but it's taking many years to get there. And that's what I think is the frustrating thing, is that it's sort of a few miles away now, but it never actually comes. So I think that's, and actually on a personal note, we did lose our Wi-Fi last week completely. And I just realised how difficult it must be for people that don't have Wi-Fi, how awful it is. You just feel completely cut off. And you can't access your bank, you can't access your messages, people can't contact you. It's very difficult. So we really need to be aware of how important this issue is. And it isn't just for personal reasons, it's for people who run their businesses in local areas. Makes it very difficult with poor Wi-Fi. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Saxby?
Yeah, in Girlworthy, this came up quite a bit, and as well with Airband. So BR Alston was receiving airband, then the contract switched to Vineus, who've done an exceptional job. But for people in more rural areas, so Gulworthy, they've been waiting 2 years for this so-called promise of internet. And airband came down to my family's property, and they said, because of the copper wires, you're going to have to dig your own trench to get. We have to dig our own trench to get access to airband, and luckily, you know, my dad doesn't mind doing that. But if you're elderly, you have a disability, how are you going to dig your own if you don't have the money? Then you're cut off. Then you can't talk to family, and then, as I think as well for people working remotely. And I know the funding that went to this was from the European Fund, Devon County Council, and it's not being delivered at all. It's not being executed, and we're falling further behind every time they're not held accountable.
No. I think, sorry.
I would just echo some of those things that have been said in Yelverton, and we're sort of more populated than elsewhere. We had a situation whereby I'm talking to BT saying, you know, can we improve our, I mean, we're about 65 megs, so I appreciate for anybody on 2.5, that doesn't sound great. However, it was still causing us problems with all family in the place. I spoke to them and said, well, that's it, that's your lot. You're not going to get any more than that. And we were paying sort of 70 quid a month for that. It's only when somebody came in, we've actually, with Wildernet now, but they're only able to do it because it's a bigger settlement, a bigger population. So I think it is a problem. We've got Sheepstall, for instance, in our area. They have been asking for months and months and months. I don't think airband got to them, because is airband a line of sight? Something like that. If you're not in line of sight, you can't necessarily access it.
I think airband have put up a lot of fibre cables.
Right.
Because there's trees in Devon and they're using cables.
Apparently.
Yeah. Councillor Viney was possibly first.
Yeah, just to say where I work often towards Lifton Way. They've given up on fibre, airband, all these other options, and they've actually gone for this thing where you plug it into the mains, and if there is 4G available, it latches onto the 4G and somehow boosts it and pushes out 5G. And that has been, we've got a couple of those things now out there, and they're working really well.
Thank you. Councillor Southcott?
I was just going to say, clear matter, airband not only do the radio link, but they also do in fibre. And it's certainly out round the area where this gentleman lived, that I read out. The fibre has been put in by airband. There's poles up all over the place. Some poles haven't even got cables on them. They just seem to have stopped all operations.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I think those concerns are reflected all across the borough, and there are rumours about airband, and there's obviously no work getting done. So I think CDS, Connecting Devon and Somerset, are responsible for this provision. So should we just invite them to a future meeting? Yeah. That's fine then. Councillor Jory?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if you'd like me to comment, but clearly we have an identified strategic aim within the council to promote faster broadband throughout the borough, if nothing else, for the benefit of business and employment. And many of our rural businesses, including farms, are quite reliant on broadband to communicate and make the returns they need to get in, and so on and so forth. I share all of the concerns, and we as a council have been pushing really, really hard. I think we've gone above and beyond the situation of many councils by going down the road of employing a broadband officer for a period who was available to try and help communities to improve their connectivity and to try and build up a relationship with CDS and airband in order to get the best possible returns that we could get in West Devon. Mr. Molyneux may be able to comment more, but I think it's probably been a very frustrating exercise We have pushed really hard. I've had plenty of conversations with Connecting Devon and Somerset. I know at an officer level, people have had conversations with their counterparts in the Devon economy team and pushed really hard. I think our overriding impression has been that the way that CDS has been operated has been inefficient and chaotic, it's left us, I think, in rural areas in a situation where we aren't getting the service that we should be receiving. We have had numerous meetings today with CDS. We've even managed to get a meeting with the Department for Science, Industry and Technology and have a discussion with them about upcoming initiatives and what they might be doing and how they might be able to help us rural economies. And with all these things in mind, broadband is probably the next topic that I want to discuss within the economy portfolio at our next group meeting, at our support group meeting, advisory group meeting, and we were going to endeavour to get as many representatives from different stakeholders as we could to engage with us at that time. Now, how successful it will be, I don't know, but it's definitely something that's at the forefront of our minds. Whether that can be combined with calling some people into ONS, I don't know, but what order we do things in, I'm happy to be guided on. But that's certainly my intention, to make that the next topic of discussion and to see where we might be going in terms of what we might do as a borough council to push to get this this type of provision. Interesting the comments that Councillor Viney made, because I know in the discussions we had with DSIT, one of the thoughts that was being put forward was that as 5G gets rolled out, there will probably be less need for folk to be connected physically by copper. So perhaps the whole sort of connection by copper situation is maybe drawing to a close. So changes in technology are having an impact on this as well. But I agree with everything that's been said. We as a borough council, I think, have been doing our bit. And the complainant, I think, probably needs to direct if it is a complaint, I think it's possibly making us aware more than anything. If folk are minded to complain, I think Ofcom is the right place to complain, but I think we can try and flex our muscles and do what we can as well. So hopefully that's a useful comment as to how we're viewing things strategically.
Thank you. Molyneux? No, you're not Councillor. Mr. Molyneux.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Jury. I think, members, there's two issues really, which were both alluded to by Councillor Jury. The first is CDS and the rollout of the Connecting Devon and Somerset programme, of which Airband is part of it. And I am aware that there are confidential discussions going on with Airband from people in CDS, but I'm not at liberty to say, and I don't know actually the outcome of those conversations. The second part is really sort of government policy and the way the government has gone out about trying to roll broadband out. And I think, Councillor Jury, if I was splitting the two things up, I would say the advisory group should look at the wider government policy, and I think Overview and Scrutiny should be holding CDS to account, is my view. I think government policy has effectively said to broken up the area into lots and then basically said bid to provide broadband in those lots, and commercial providers are going to pick the most cost-effective areas. So the areas that cost the most money are never going to get picked by the commercial providers. It's simple business economics. So I think that government policy and the way government go about trying to encourage connectivity is the thing that the advisory group should look at, and I think we should look to get Chairman invite CDS in to give an update as to how they are supporting the rollout of broadband in West Devon.
Yeah. Councillor Southcott.
One of the things I was going to say was, in a lot of the rural areas, the mobile signal is not good enough. There's not good enough coverage to actually switch over to using radio routers. They work fine in some areas. That particular area that gentleman lives in, no, it isn't going to work because there's no repeater mast. And all it needs is a repeater in the valley, and it would serve all those houses with a 5G network. It would be brilliant. And the same would apply to a lot of places within the Brisdow ward, which I cover. That would solve so many problems if simple repeater masts were put up for mobile phones. It would solve so much of the problem.
Councillor Saxby.
Okay, so what happened to the broadband officer? Are they still here, or did we have to cut them?
In effect, we only had a limited amount of funding. So whilst Gemma is still here as an officer, the majority of her time is now spent on the UK SPF active travel funding that we got from the government. So they have knowledge, but no time really to spend any more time on it, and we can't afford them to do that.
Yeah, totally. So when did those discussions, those confidential discussions happen with Airband?
I believe they've been ongoing for a number of months now.
Really? Well, yeah, I mean, I would like to get CDS in. Can we get Airband in if it's been going on for months, these conversations? They did suggest putting a repeater mast in Beer Alston. I saw the plans for that, and nothing's gone further because Beer Alston is pretty, it's not like Bridgestow, but Goworthy as well. So if we can get Airband in, because I assume they gave a contract to Vineas, totally makes sense with profit, but what's happening to that repeater mast? Every time they're delaying that, that means people aren't working, people aren't getting connection, and I just think that it's been 2 years now and months of discussions. Let's get them in. No.
Is there any reason, can we ask Airband?
We can, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if, I assume colleagues have seen the fact that they were talking about phasing out copper lines in 2025, I think it was. They have now delayed that decision. So it's a question of how far further they kicked it down the road, I don't know. But I just noticed that recently, they're getting rid of that.
I am aware of that, Councillor West, and I attended I think it was an LGA seminar about it, and effectively it's been delayed until at least 2027, and the primary reason for that is the number of failures on care, the care devices that individuals have in their home, and I think they'd had across the country over 30,000 cases where those care devices literally would not work, and as a result of that they basically had to delay the rollout and look at a different approach to the rollout.
Councillor Saxby.
Okay, that's fine. That makes total sense for it to delay the rollout for safety of people. I think the technology is coming and the future's coming, but people here in our area can't keep waiting until 2027 until technology catches up, because if we don't speak up for those people, then it'll be 2029 and then it'll be 2032. And we might not even have the funding or infrastructure to then implement the newer technology. I think what Nick Viney's doing is great up there, but I think it's worth bringing them in and as well going, what can you do in the meantime whilst you're delaying improving technology on copper lines because of an error? That makes sense.
Councillor Daniel.
I just want to say, could we possibly ask Jurassic Fibre at least for an update as to where they are within my ward, because they have been digging trenches, but nothing's happened for months now. So I would like an update if we could have them as well. If they don't turn up, just a statement would be good, wouldn't it? Thanks.
Can we ask for that? Yeah, sorry, Steve.
So this is members is where it starts to get really complicated, because Airband were commissioned by CDS as part of a government-funded programme. People like Jurassic Fibre and Wildernet, and even now to a degree OpenReach, are doing this broadband on a commercial basis. So they are not part of any programme. They have just decided, we're going to pick your area and we think we can make some money and we can put this fibre in at this cost and get our money back. So you're talking about, in effect, 3 different models here. You're talking about a CDS government-funded model, you're talking about future government policy, and the commercial market picking and choosing. And we've had scenarios, I think it was in Yelverton, where CDS were going along with a programme that Airband were rolling out, and BT Openreach came in and just put fibre in. And so all of a sudden, from having, in effect, famine, you've gone to feast, where there's almost a choice of providers to where to get. And this is where the whole model doesn't make sense, because it's almost turning into sort of the Wild West.
Let's say Wild West, isn't it? But why can't we have a joined-up service so that everyone can be connected? The money that's been spent by all these separate companies putting in little bits everywhere could have been a joined-up service, and everyone in West Devon could be connected, couldn't they? Makes sense.
I would say in Yelverton it was very much the case up until about a year ago when I was talking to BT. They were the only ones there. And then we had a situation when WildNet came along, we moved in droves. They probably lost about 30% of their business. So suddenly they're thinking, well, actually, no, we're going to lose out here. So it is that Wild West. It's where there's a pressure, they will adjust. If not, they'll just sit back and say, keep paying us the money. We've got no competition. It's not joined up thinking at all.
I think we've probably talked about this enough, haven't we? You want to say one more thing?
I just think if it's government funded, I think the priority should be bringing in a government organisation. Although they have monopolies, it's business, right? If they've got a monopoly and they can make profit off it, good for them, go for it. But I think let's get the government organisation in. Our taxpayers' money is going on that. And then if they step up their game, they're putting telegraph poles, then we can pursue the trenches just open that aren't being used.
Yeah. Is CDS run by the county council and the... That's clear. That's fine then. Thank you very much. So we'll do that. We'll ask CDS and Airband. It doesn't sound like Airband will arrive, but we can ask them. And it would be great if broadband was a universal service. I think it should be. I completely forgot confirmation of minutes. Item 2 on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, with Live West, the director on our minutes said he would find out what checks were made on properties that had Section 157 covenants and feedback. Have we had any feedback?
So we've reviewed the...
This was Live West, and on their presentation and update, the director said he would get back to us about checks, whether checks were made on properties that had Section 157 covenants, and give us an idea about how many there were. I think it was to do with letting properties go, etc.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've had anything.
So there's about 5 outstanding actions on those minutes, which we've chased them all, haven't we? So
we're going to have an answer back through Isabel Blake in the next couple of weeks.
So can we confirm the minutes? Is everybody happy with them? Is there anything would you think is incorrect in there?
So just to be clear then, are we going to carry forward those actions onto these minutes? Yeah? Thank you.
Can we have a show of hands for confirming the minutes, please? Thank you very much. Just go and catch up with my numbers now. So we have a thematic update on performance and resources. Thank you very much, Councillor Edmonds. Good to see you again.
Chair, is it worth just giving background to the new members that this is sort of the format going forward in terms of reviewing the themes within the council plan at each meeting, bringing the lead members in who are accountable for those themes, and reporting back on the progress in terms of the actions in the council plan, and the opportunity for the committee to ask questions or go into more detail.
Yeah, thank you very much. Would you like to introduce?
Right, well, The report is part of the Council's performance management framework, which requires that each of the Council plan themes is monitored by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee at least once during the year. So the performance and resources theme is the first to report this Council year, closely followed by the customer experience and accessible service theme, which is the next agenda item. In addition to this single theme report, the overall reporting on progress of all 8 council plan themes will be considered by the Hub Committee through the Integrated Performance Management Report, and I think that goes to Hub, I think, on at least 3 occasions during the year. As part of my lead member role, I meet relevant officers, normally monthly, to review performance against the theme delivery plans and discuss ongoing challenges or actions to ensure performance remains on track. So let me turn to the progress update document, which starts on page 11 of your agenda papers. Which will appear on the screen any moment, I believe. Yeah, thank you, Neil. Yeah, so I'm just going to, I'm not going to go through the whole report. So I just do pick out some of the highlights, and then we can move on to questions. So on the introduction page, it confirms there that good progress is already being made against the delivery plan, which was adopted in February 2024. So we've got off to a good start. So some key highlights there. Commissioning Office 365 Champions Programme, to support employees in using technology and maximising productivity. Now, that is a 12-month programme run by 365 Tribes, Microsoft 365 experts, no less, a supportive community of like-minded colleagues who are eager to grow and learn in various ways. We've appointed a new health and safety officer for the 2 councils, and we're working towards the publication of the Council's accounts for 23-24, and I'll comment on that further in just a minute. And we've implemented a guaranteed interview scheme for candidates with a disability, ex-forces and care experience young people. And I believe we've recruited perhaps one or from that source, or am I?
Yes, we offered a work placement trial to one care experienced young person. Yep.
Thank you, Neil. At the bottom of that page, you'll see that 17 activities are currently on track and within budget. 2 activities slightly off track, and I'll comment on those in just a moment. And the 2 that haven't actually, they're not due to start quite yet. So moving on to page 13, the development plans are made up of 4 primary aims. The first is the implementation of the second year of the organisational and development plan. The plan was launched in February 2023 and sets out a commitment and a long-term vision for how the Council will lead, manage, support and develop their employees. Recruitment is still quite challenging, but I think probably easing after the pandemic, when it became very difficult indeed. But we do have a vacancy in the planning team, and that is position of Assistant Director of Planning. And we've got a couple of vacancies in assets, a Head of Land and Property and Head of Capital Programmes and Infrastructure. The staff survey that was carried out in October 23, gained some positive feedback on that one. I think a couple of the points that were raised were around learning and development and health and well-being, which obviously are being addressed. And the next survey will be carried out in the autumn of this year. If I move on to apprenticeships, which are at the bottom of page 14, so the Council continues to promote apprenticeships and ensure that we're maximising the use of the apprenticeship levy. Currently, we have 2 employees undertaking apprenticeships, with another 19 scheduled to commence in the next 18 months. So that's very positive. So primary aim 2 is manage the council's finances well. I think we can safely say we do that. You'll see the top delivery plan there is to work with the Rural Services Network to lobby government for fairer funding. We all know how difficult it is to deliver services in a very rural setting. And the RSN do a great job in lobbying governments and supporting district councils, rural councils. And our Rural Service Delivery Grant, one of the few grants we continue to receive from central government for the current year, is 630,000. So that is very valuable. And also we obviously do regular briefings on financial matters. The next member briefing will be in September of this year to consider the medium-term financial strategy. And that will be followed, obviously, by sort of budget forums or workshops as well as we start to look at next year's council budget. You'll be all pleased to know that the annual training for members on Treasury management is in the diary, and you can look forward to that in November, December of this year. I know it's a favourite with members. Maintain a high standard. So moving on with the finances, maintain a high standard judgment from our external auditors on their annual report. Well, you'll be aware that the peer review report has some very good comments about the financial planning and management of the council's finances. And it said that the small but very experienced finance team that supports both councils are a credit to their profession and their councils. In addition to that, our new auditor, Bishop Fleming, have already carried out some work on the value for money aspect of the council's finances, and they've not identified any issues. So, a really good start there from Bishop Fleming. And also, yeah, on the 23-24 accounts, we're going to publish. Those will be published on the 15th of July. That'll be in time for the Audit and Governance meeting on the 23rd of July. And in March, the finance team predicted a budget surplus of 159,000, and the outturn is, I'm pleased to say, very close to that figure. And an outturn report will be presented to the Hub Committee on the 23rd of July. Looking at audit, continues to make improvements in internal audit assessments, so a continual programme of improvement, really. So, obviously, internal audit make recommendations. Officers have got a tracker in the form of a spreadsheet in place to make sure that those actions are completed. And what we've also done now is added external audit recommendations to that tracker to make sure that they're also picked up and action within timescale. The primary aim 3 is to guarantee efficiency in service delivery by managing performance. So this is about service reviews, carry out localities and frontline services review. That's actually turned into a community service and operations reviews. And operations would include things, for example, car parks and grounds maintenance. KPI, obviously we report regularly on KPIs. You'll remember, I think it was the last meeting when we brought a KPI performance report. And members wanted to look at that more closely, and we've had a task and finish group to look at that. That was very constructive. That's been taken away. Mr. Hawke is now building that into the next iteration of the KPIs for this year, and we'll be bringing a report to the July ONS meeting for you to see, the output of that task and finish group. IT, you develop the resilience of our IT systems, absolutely, very important indeed that we are secure. So there is a big move to, storing stuff on the cloud, and there's going to be a cyber security briefing at the next Audit and Governance Committee in July. So it's a very important area, and you will have all had, I hope, recently some cyber security training, which I know you will have all completed, and you won't be getting an email from me. Moving on, then we're looking at our procurement strategy. That's going to be updated, but the procurement regulations, the government are giving us further guidance in October 24, and as soon as that has been published, that procurement review will be undertaken. And then finally, primary aim number 4 is about the council's buildings and land to make sure that they meet our future needs. So the delivery plan is to agree an asset management strategy and develop a delivery plan. Well, that will be updated. As I mentioned just now, we are looking to recruit into the assets team. Once the head of land and property has been appointed, one of their first tasks will be to look at that strategy and develop a new strategy. And I think that is my final point. So, are there any questions, please?
Can I just say thank you for the update? And it's good to see all that good news in there and all the progress we're making. And thank you very much for taking those the feedback from the working group away. Looking at the KPI, so we look forward to seeing them later in July. So we'll go on to questions. Councillor Saxby.
I just want to say I love how that was laid out. It was really clear. It showed the steps for progress. I think that was really good, really, really helpful.
Councillor Vashon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Edmonds. That's very comprehensive, and I think we're doing a good job on this. Going back to the apprentices, the apprenticeship scheme, I think was quite interesting. Obviously, we've got the 2 employees now, and it's going to be beefed up to another 19 over the next 18 months. Are those? I know the apprenticeship scheme is fairly limited in a way. It's based on age group from 16 upwards, I think, to 21 or even older. Minimum wage obviously is reflective of those age groups as well. And for the 16-year-old, I think it's about £6.40 an hour on that. If we're taking on apprentices for purely West Devon Council, how does that work? In that you're only here for 2 days a week, and are they moving to South Hams for 3 days or?
Thank you, Councillor Vashon. And it's probably something that we could have been a bit clearer on in the report. The vast majority of those apprenticeships are actually existing staff members. So members will possibly be aware that we are required to pay into an apprenticeship levy, which is a percentage of our annual wage bill, or a monthly wage bill. For West Devon, that's about £640 a month, and we can use that to support apprenticeships of employees of any age. So there's no age limit for accessing those apprenticeships. There are some conditions around, do you already have, qualifications that would exceed the level of the apprenticeship and therefore not eligible. But the majority of those apprenticeships are existing employees, and they do work across South Hams and West Devon. West Devon and South Hams, sorry.
So just to elaborate further on that then. So for example, it's about career development and pathways in the organisation. So if we've got somebody who's gone through the planning business admin team and they have aspirations to become a planner, we can then pay for them to go on the technical training courses and degree courses, which we've done in some cases, so that we then grow our own planning officers and the like. So that's the sort of a real example of that in action. So it's actually about retention of staff, and development of staff, because it's always a lot easier to retain staff that you've developed than it is to recruit those staff at higher levels.
Sorry, Chair. I can understand that. I'm just a bit not confused, but worried that they have to travel to their place of work, and especially on the lower paid rates. A lot of the apprentices, I know, find it very difficult travelling around from rural areas to the places of work in most of Devon. I'm just wondering if that's the case in West Devon as well. We're not excluding anybody in West Devon from actually taking up apprenticeships.
So we have, because you're quite right, Councillor Vachon, that travel is a key factor, and not everybody lives in Tavistock, and the same, not everybody lives in Totnes. So, you know, for a 16-year-old to have to get public transport to get from, say, Oakhampton to Tavistock, or from Dartmouth to Totnes, is very expensive and often almost impossible, coupled with they've then got the technical side of training qualification at a college. So we have looked at funding on top of the minimum wage, additional funding to pay for travel costs, to reimburse travel costs, to try and encourage that younger age group to take the role on. But one of the challenges we have is the fact that we are an organisation that predominantly works basically not in the office. So traditionally, it was really easy for an apprentice because they'd be sat in one place with a member of staff for their apprenticeship. And of course, now most of our staff are interchangeable and move around. So it's a challenge, but we are working through that challenge.
Good. That's good to see. Thank you very much.
Councillor Saxby.
Have you had any young people apply for the apprenticeships?
We have, Councillor Saxby, and we don't know the outcome yet, but certainly we've recently gone out to recruit some apprentices for sort of multi-skilled plumbers, electricians, bit of all sorts. And pleasingly, we had 50 applications for two roles. So, you know, a great level of interest. Quite a few young people, I haven't got the exact numbers, but yes, there is interest from a number of young people. So we'll update at the next meeting if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the first time young people have applied to this apprenticeship scheme, or have you? Basically, I'm wondering is, let's say the young people do pass that recruitment. I'm sure with remote learning, there would be training days, etc. They would gain the experience of remote learning or not. But actually, the travel I hadn't thought of, and that's a great point. If you recruit them, would the money be there to start reimbursing their travel straight away?
Yes.
Ooh, that's
yes,
great.
it would, and I think we've got a really good track record actually of councillors of developing people from you know, school leavers, young people, right the way through. And if I look at, I mean, Lisa's here today in her finance team. You know, we've got a number of accountants now that have worked their way up through from almost being school college leavers, and they are now accountants, and really good accountants. So, and we're supporting them with their various accountancy qualifications. So I think we've got a pretty good track record of doing that. But yes, we're going to do all we can to support further apprentices.
Okay, that's great. I'll make sure to talk about that and shout about that more and talk to the schools in Beer Alston about that, because that's great, because that's the role of a government as well, to nurture the talent and population here. My question is, how long has that head of land and property role been unfilled? I feel like I keep seeing it on the network map.
So I was going to, when the question's finished, I was going to add to what Councillor Edmonds said, because we had recruited an individual and they were due to start literally beginning of July, and then they declined, they rescinded their decision. So we'd gone through the recruitment process, appointed somebody, they'd accepted, they'd got a start date, they were working through their notice, and I think they'd been offered more money to stay where they were by their employer. So we're now back in that recruitment cycle again. So unfortunately, it would have been a green if it had been maybe 3 weeks ago this report had been presented, because we thought we'd got somebody who was due to start.
Yeah. Where did you recruit them from, or how did they apply? How did you find them?
Another council that might be to our west, that's a unitary authority. There you go. I won't say any more. Right across our west. That puts cream and jam on the other way round.
Okay. Okay, so it was like a sideways transfer, or did they apply?
They'd applied.
They'd applied, okay. Because I did write that down. I saw that role empty for a really long time, and obviously the pay down here is quite low compared to other areas in Britain. And I'm just wondering is there, not that, I don't know how desperate the role is, but how the pay and how you're planning to retain that staff, because now that it's happened, people do leave, there's a high churn rate in the planners, so how will you, moving forward, how you retain those members, because it's got quite a high churn rate?
If I can pick that up, please, Chair, thank you. Yeah, I mean, recruitment of professionals is difficult. I think in the last couple of years, we've come a long way forward. So we had a pay review a year ago. We've looked at the whole OD plan, which is about not just about pay, but about the conditions that people work in and the culture of the organisation. As a result of that, actually, we've got a much more stable workforce than before. Some of the senior roles are really difficult. We've actually taken a different approach now for that and a couple of other planning roles. So you'll be aware that Ali Wagstaff left a couple of months ago. We've been out to advert and we couldn't recruit to that post. So we're taking a different approach now. We're going to the MJ, the Municipal Journal, and doing a slightly different approach to recruitment for those key posts. Because ultimately, we want the best staff to come to the council. So we've looked at everything. We looked at the pay, the conditions, and also how we approach. So we're actually actively out looking for individuals who will bring, extra value to the organisation. So hopefully that approach will bring us some success in the next couple of months.
Okay, so that's great to hear. So you saw the mistakes, you've started to improve, and now you're executing that learning. Do you use LinkedIn recruitment as well at all?
We do. We use all channels, and as officers, we all sort of share and move things forward. So we're trying to get as bigger coverage as we can, and we will speak to individuals if we think we've got the right individual we know. So yeah, we're trying all channels as well as we can, to be fair.
Okay, I look forward to the improvements from this new way of recruitment and review.
Could I just take exception to what you said there, Councillor Saxby? Not mistakes, challenges.
Challenges, okay.
They aren't mistakes. They are challenges that we face in the marketplace.
First attempt in learning.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about recruitment and apprenticeships. Does anybody want to talk about either of those subjects before we move on to something else? You're going to do a new subject?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, good.
All I'd say is that, in my own experience, in-house training is great, but then you do need them coming in the bottom, which is, I'm pleased to see you've got that. So it's a ladder effect, basically, from that point of view. Pleased to see that. It's been briefly touched on about the impact of absences, and I note from the procurement, we talked about the buildings lead and that, but you said there are 2 other posts not yet fulfilled. What do you think the overall impact is? Obviously, we've seen that we're a little bit off track on the one. Is there any other major impacts? Not just in terms of not getting the work done, but on staff and how busy they are from that point of view?
Yeah, well, 2 of those posts sit with me. So it's our Assistant Director of Planning and the Strategic Planning Manager. So, there is a knock-on effect, but at the moment, the team are pulling together as well as they can to keep an eye on that work. Things are on track, but it's the same situation, isn't it? For a period of time, you can sustain things, but you can't for too long, which is why we've taken this different approach to recruitment. But everyone's pulling together. We will bring in agency staff where appropriate. So if we've got a big gap in, for example, planning or legal services, for example, where you can't sustain that, we will bring an agency officer in to plug a gap while we look for permanent recruitment. That has its benefits because it keeps work moving, but they're not part of the core team, and also it's expensive. So, but at the moment, we're okay, and I think the biggest challenge for us on the planning side of things is that development management performance is good, with the joint local plan and the reiteration of that over the next couple of years. That's where we need to make sure we've got the right necessary skills within the organisation. So that's why we're actively looking for someone in that role.
Thank you, Drew. Can I then just ask what the relationship's like with the new auditors?
Yeah, thank you very much, through you, Chair. Bishop Fleming, they are new auditors to local government, so they're not a firm that we've worked with before, but we have met with them several times now and developed a good relationship with them. They have, as a firm, had some external training into local government finances because it's a new area for Bishop Fleming. They have attended both of the last two Audit and Governance Committee meetings and presented their audit plan to the Audit and Governance Committee. They have, as Councillor Edmonds said, they've already done their value for money work, and they haven't raised any issues at the moment as part of that. So hopefully they will report back on that side at the October Audit and Governance Committee meeting. But yes, they have a very experienced team. We have a very experienced team, and we're hoping for a very proactive relationship with them for the next 5 years, which is how long we will have Bishop Fleming for. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any finance-related questions? Any other questions? I have a couple of questions myself, if that's all right. So I've talked several times before about the Disability Confident Employer Scheme. So I was interested to know whether the page 12, it talks about guaranteed interview scheme for candidates with a disability. I just wondered if that was connected in any way.
It is connected, Councillor Kimber, yes. I mean, having that accreditation is something that shows that as an employer we are, positive about offering opportunities to people with disabilities. So absolutely linked and something that we are following up on. And I think further than that, because the fact we've guaranteed interviews for candidates with disabilities, it's not been that successful. I mean, you can launch it, can't you? And you can guarantee it. But actually now we need to start targeting some of the roles and working with people like Disability Devon and various other organisations that are supporting people with disabilities to highlight the roles that are available. So that's something that we'll be working on over the coming months.
A follow-up question to that. So I see there's an equality, diversity and inclusion commitment and plan for the workforce. I was just interested to know whether that includes neurodiversity, and I was imagining that would be a course that you would buy in. So I was wondering, I just think, when you think about diversity, I think people in rural communities, particularly the people who've lived there for generations, we need to learn about them because they're our residents. And I just wondered if that might be included in any way.
Absolutely, it will be. And Mr. Molyneux is our lead for equality and diversity, and he sort of chairs but supports the Staff Equality and Diversity Forum. And we have commissioned some specific training. So our housing team, for example, all had effectively neurodiversity training, a particular focus on dyslexia, but neurodiversity training quite recently. So we are commissioning those sorts of training packages as and where we need. And we are out to consultation with our staff at the moment to understand what training they feel they might like to receive, because we think that's important. Let's not enforce a training programme on our staff. Let's ask them, let's ask our diverse workforce what training and support they feel they need.
The only thing I would add to that is we will be including members in terms of rolling that training out as well.
There was a survey in last week's bulletin.
There was a survey in last week's bulletin, and we're looking. So we're trying to do this rather than just say sheep dip everybody with a particular type of training and say there you go, you're trained. What we're trying to do is ascertain what people's knowledge is so far, and then build a training package from the bottom up rather than from the top down. And we're using the staff volunteers group, which we're calling the staff ambassadors group, that we're going to then reinforce that message in terms of with staff at team meetings and probably a member workshop on that as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Daniel, did you want to comment?
We don't know what we don't know. So if you can pick that up, that would be really helpful and excellent, I think. Thanks.
Yes, coming from a family of neurodiverse in terms of autism and that sort of thing, I think we have to realise that within our community and wider community, there is this significant proportion of people out there with skills because of that autism and other aspects that we could use and enhance for ourselves, A, within the community, but B, within the council with the appropriate understanding. So I'd really, really like to look at that and how we can extend that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask another question, please? On page 17, it talks about carrying out a localities and frontline services review. I get the impression localities has changed in the last year, but I don't really know how. Should I know how, or have I missed a training course?
No, Councillor Kimby, you've not missed a training course. Yeah. So we've got a new management structure in place, and we've also, for the first time in probably a number of years, filled the team to the staff capacity, the budget capacity. At the same time, we've created the community development team. So we've split off the sort of Dill, as you would know her as a localities officer, put her in community development, but recruited more locality officers at the front line. And what we're doing now, there's a piece of what localities team has grown organically. So basically, a service area would come along and say, could localities do this for us? And localities would go, yeah, that's okay, we'll do that. So what we're doing at the moment is the new management is going through, talking to all the service areas that the localities team provides services to try and work out, A, have they the capacity to do all those pieces of work, but actually set up some sort of internal service level agreement so that the planning team know that if localities are doing some work from them, they'll know that localities will do this particular work in this particular time frame to this quality. So it's really sharpening up and tightening up what localities do. There's also a piece of work looking at sort of the actual hours of work as well, in terms of, is it a 9 to 5 job, 5 days a week, or should it be spread over the weekend? Should it be more resource in the summer and less resource in the winter? And looking at combining that with, say, the frontline services review, for example, the grounds maintenance team that we've now got in West Devon work on an annualised hours basis. And that's because grounds maintenance is much busier in the summer, so they're doing more hours in the summer and less hours in the winter. And it's looking at the services from all aspects, including localities, for things like that. So that's what the service review is covering. Yeah. And when we reach the end of that, we'll brief members as to what the outcome of that is.
Yeah, I was aware this was happening, Mr. Molyneux. How long do we think the lead-in time is before we get the review complete?
I don't know. I'll come back to you on that one. I'm sorry. I don't know. I could make an answer up and you'd be none the wiser, but I don't know.
I'll make a note and I'll bring up.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any other questions? We have a recommendation, which is that we note the progress updates note the progress update against the performance and resources section of the council plan. Should we have a show of hands to see whether we're happy to note that? Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your time and for answering our questions. I think Councillor Moody is now joining us for a thematic update on customer experience and accessible services.
Pardon? Do you want me to put it on the screen? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
That was very interesting. It was very interesting earlier let me turn my feedback down. Interesting to hear the discussion about broadband, because that impacts on my portfolio as well, as the accessibility of customers to contact West Devon and access services. And I'd really like to attend the next meeting and see what responses we get. But what I'd like to do, and now I don't know for the newer members, my portfolio has changed in wording some over the last month or two. I am now it's customer experience and accessibility. It used to include communication, but no longer. But basically, you've got a copy of the report there. What's good at the moment is that we've got one of the objectives complete, 12 are on track, one of those will be updated and be complete shortly. But I'd just like to say that as far as accessibility is concerned, it's essential that customers can easily contact the council for all their needs as part of our digital first. And that the work program, as I say, the work program's on track. But as far as the digital transactions and customer satisfaction, I'm happy to announce that 80%, that's 80%, is undertaken by customers online. And our customer feedback has indicated that there is a high satisfaction rating from that group of customers. And as I said with the digital first policy, it ensures that those customers who can contact us online have a 24/7 access, and those who don't have other ways of contacting us via the call centre. And we still continue to offer a service desk facility at Kilworthy every Tuesday for customers who prefer face-to-face. Now, the number of customers who are coming to us has remained constant, the people who come to us on a Tuesday. And it's somewhere between 10 or 16 on average. A third of them actually are just coming here to drop off forms and no other reason, or they might be coming to get some recycle bins, things like that. Another third are taken to the PCs, the computers within the service centre downstairs, and they are able to self-serve using the PCs. At some time in the future, we've had a brief conversation about is having that access to PCs and a little bit of guidance of how to contact the council tax department or whatever, revs and bens, is that we might be able to use, and we're exploring using some of our stakeholders, like local doctor surgeries, or for instance, they provide access to computers at libraries. So that's one of the areas that we're exploring. One of the issues that you've seen on the list is improved signage and accessibility to KP. We've improved the signage on the front door. I think we all agreed that it was pretty pants before, with handwritten labels on doors and arrows and all sorts of things. It has now been refined. There's a nice clear signage at the front door. We're working on putting signage at the road so that customers who are walking here, when they come along the road, and if the sign says we're open on Tuesdays and it's a Wednesday, they come all the way up the front door to find that we're closed. So, and that just helps with customer satisfaction as well. There's also a free phone available on the right-hand side of the front door. So if the front door is closed, customers can ring for free to the call centre from the yellow phone. And also we have our localities teams, which we have discussed earlier, who continue to offer home visits to vulnerable customers and those customers who don't have access. And we plan to consult with other lead members to analyse and improve the effectiveness of this outreach programme. We need to have some data. How are we doing? What's our feedback? Public engagement and information distribution. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen, I hope everyone's seen this document, and I hope that you get copies of it. And this is a document, for those who haven't seen it, it shows what our council does, because there's a lot of confusion out in the public that a lot of people don't understand the 3 levels of local council, so they don't understand parish and who is responsible for what West Devon and district councils do, and what the Devon County do. So this is an extremely good document, and I'm hopefully, with Jim Davis on my left-hand side here, we're trying to get it into a format that we can put it onto our website. One of the difficulties we have, and Jim can explain it in more detail if you require, is that for people who are visually handicapped, or sorry, that's not a word I should be using, visually have a impairment, the document has to be in such a format that it can be read by a screen reader. We can't just put it on as a PDF, because we would be breaking the law. So that's one project that we're working on. We've already just, thanks for Jim, is the timetable or the calendar for waste collections. The team have done a lot of work, and it's now in an accessible format and is now on the web page. So that is, and what we are, we've also scheduled several events across West Devon in the coming months, and you can see that list on CE15 to see what's going on there. And the officers will have this to explain. The other thing that I have mentioned in previously is that one of the things I'm trying to establish is that this engaging with customers to let them understand and educate what each council does, is that our front page of our web page, if you want to report a pothole, you can press a button and report a pothole. And I want to make it clear on that website that that isn't our responsibility. So I'm suggesting that maybe those buttons should be color-coded, so that, similar with the color code in this document, that the green ones are West Devon, the orange ones are Devon County, because I don't want people thinking that we are responsible for potholes. So the other thing with the upcoming events, we will be collecting data from these events and capturing engagement levels and categories of interest. So it's not just we've handed out 100 leaflets. We want to categorize what those inquiries are, so we can then target where we're going. Later this year, following the customer survey in autumn, because we want to be data driven, we will be developing we're working on a customer contract. A lot of councils around the country are doing this, saying, okay, if we do this for you, you need to be doing this for us. Becomes a contract between the customer and the council. It is not just one-way traffic. Simple things like, the responsibility of a customer is to put their rubbish out at the right time and not put it out the day before or too late or whatever. So it's basic stuff like that. The other thing is that we will also, the other thing I wanted to just mention is that a lot of you probably don't know that with the customer survey, that West Devon in 2018 became a member of the Institute of Customer Services. And now this is an institute, and it's renowned for providing customer surveys, benchmarking and training services. Now, it's a well-recognized national organization, and 80% of the members come from private sector, but and 20% from the public sector, and includes companies like Amazon, First Direct, O2, Marks and Spencer's, BMW. So when they do our customer survey, they will survey a selection of customers in West Devon, get feedback, analyse it and produce it back to us. They will give us an indication on how we are performing compared to other councils around the country. One back when I was customer first lead member, we were ahead, and I think we still are ahead of the annual average for county council, for district councils. The final thing is we are also currently reviewing our online consultation platform, which Jim might be able to explain if anybody would like to know more about it. It's to ensure, so we have a platform online so that, and we do have customers who do complete that form. We're working on roughly 20%, I think it is, of customers will leave a response, and the response from customers is very, very good. But we're reviewing that platform to ensure that the platform is always user-friendly and we get good response rates. And I think that's about it. If there's any obviously, if there's any questions I can answer, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'll hand them over to officers. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I've received a complaint from someone in my ward about the length of time it's taken for West Devon to get back to them.
Right.
They'd sent an email to West Devon inquiring about council tax on the 22nd of April and got back a standard response. And this is the email I got from them on the 11th of May. There was a council that did not care and is prepared to ignore emails and electronic contact. The inquiry below was sent on April the 22nd. Other than the automatic response, I have had no response. I find this incompetence unacceptable. Of course, I could ring in, but this wastes both my time and yours. West Devon is failing in its public duty in not providing a reasonable response time. I would suggest at least by the following day. It's now 19 days. This is unacceptable. I see no point in contacting West Devon in the future.
Well,
so
I can only...
and I dealt with it myself. I actually contacted Dillis in the community development team, and we dealt with his query about council tax, hopefully successfully. But it shows that things aren't going very well, particularly with the electronic response.
All I can say is apologies to that particular customer. I'd like to see a copy of the report that you can forward, and then we can investigate and see where that glitch has happened.
Because we don't know how often this happens, do we?
Well,
people don't write and complain to perhaps their councillors. We don't necessarily know that things are going wrong in the system. Yeah. And this is actually an older person that is able to use electronic systems. Yeah. And,
I can only apologise.
It makes me wonder about people who need to telephone in.
If we can have a copy, then we can investigate and find out where that problem has occurred, whether it's on the automated service or whether it's an officer issue. I don't know. Does anybody want to comment on that?
Mr. Molyneux has a comment,
Sorry.
I think.
Yeah, it's always disappointing when somebody complains to a councillor because it means they feel that they can't get through to the council. What I would say is the level of complaints that West Devon receives on a monthly basis is really, really low. I think we're sort of almost in single figures now in terms of number of complaints that come in from residents. It's really encouraging that it's an older person who's using our email communication. But what I would say is, no, it's not. But and actually, Mr. Davis and myself have just been in a meeting with the Housing Benefit and Revenues team and the council tax team. One of the issues that we have is we have lots of individual email addresses. So there'll be an email address for council tax, there'll be several different email addresses, and monitoring those email addresses, especially if someone's not around, is really difficult. So we've been in a meeting with the team today to look to try and take them out of email so that as far as the resident is concerned, they're emailing in, but actually they're filling a form in, and the form then gets logged in our customer management system so we can track it, and it's visible to the whole organisation rather than just a few people. So and then we can actually start not only track it, we can start automating some of the things so that it actually goes to the right people at the right time, because actually the form actually says what they're inquiring about. It forces the individual to put information in about what the inquiry is and then directs it to the right group of people. So it's a constant change process to try and improve how we interact with residents, and it's part of, in effect, the efficiency in terms of Councillor Edmonds' portfolio, but actually the customer experience in terms of Councillor Moody, which is why they're on after each other. It's a double act, really.
I'm very pleased to hear that we're making improvements, because I was very upset to get that email. I have to say that, you know, somebody will actually know him personally. So it was upsetting for him as well. He was quite angry about being ignored as he saw it. I mean, I think, and I'm glad to hear that we're making improvements, and I hope we get an update on it when it happens.
So if I just said, I mean, the big thing really with emails is that you can read it, go, great, I'm going to respond to that, and then 2 more emails come in, and you just forget about it. With the new system, once it's in the system, it stays there until you say, I've done that job. So you can't forget about it. There'll always be a report. It'll stay there active on the system. So it can't just, like a letter, it can't just go to the bottom of the pile and be forgotten about. So hopefully that should remove that completely.
Okay. Can I ask a question about the new system? I think this is a system we were looking at about 4 years ago. Is it? Is that the new system? The workflow system? We went to Fullerton House and we looked at it. I was on a working group. Anyway,
yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, at the time, the councillors asked for like a councillor dashboard so we could see things which are happening in our ward. And at the time, I don't know, I've asked 2 or 3 times over the years and there's never been time to develop that. And I just wonder what the progress is on that.
Well, we were discussing that at the last meeting as well. Fundamentally, we can create it. So it's exactly the same as creating a customer account as well, a customer dashboard that customers can create and log for themselves. The hard thing is that it'll take a reasonable amount of time to do, and it's the payback. It's what is the benefit for it. We can automate reports, so you can get reports of things that happen in your area, events that happen in your area, things that are being reported in your area, much simpler than we can do, than we can build accounts. So we can do it. Same for a customer account. We could build an account for a customer, but when you talk to other councils who've done these sort of things, they don't get any benefit from it. Nobody wants to start a process and then go back and check and see what's happening with it. They just want to start a process and expect it to be done. So it's the effort versus the reward. If we get told to do it, we can do it, but we've got some other things that we want to, efficiency we want to pull out first, that we think will return more for the council quicker.
I can understand that. I think my personal problem is I send an email to an officer and I don't get a reply, but I forget I've sent it, and that's what I find difficult to manage.
So just on that point that Mr. Davis said there, and just going back to the peer review, one of the recommendations from the peer review was deliver what's in your council plan. So in terms of that request for, I'd like that, as Mr. Davis said, yes, we could do it, but actually the focus should be what we've said we're going to do there. And if members decide that they think that that's more important, then that's then for Councillor Moody to go back to Hub Committee to look at what's in the council plan and potentially change it. But the recommendation was clear from the peer review, focus on what you've said you're going to do, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I understand the balance. Councillor Saxby?
Yeah, so I think going to those events are great. So in Beer Olston they do fairs, and I think sometimes there is some of us have received 13% of the vote, less than half. I think sometimes the perception of council is that people don't trust us, they don't care, they don't want to be involved. And I think if I could invite a stand to come to the Beer Olston Fair or an event in one of the schools, I think that would be really good to show West Devon's presence. I don't know if that was possible or if it's because of a set time, but if I could book something in, maybe next year or in this autumn, I think that'd be really great.
Absolutely, Councillor Saxby. I mean, the ones on the page at the moment are the ones we've picked out because we know there's relatively high footfall at this point in time for the new team to get out there and make the greatest impact. But definitely, I'd welcome any members to feed in any thoughts. I mean, we're going to have to balance it because attendance at events is a significant resource, commitment. But let's understand what is happening out there, and then we can certainly map things in and consider what we do, so that we're not always doing the same events, and we can vary it from year to year. So absolutely, I'd welcome details of any events.
Yeah, so would you be the touch point for that?
It will be Susanna Hunter, who's our community development manager. But what we'll do is we'll push something out through the member bulletin, because we're keen to. We haven't shared through the member bulletin that we will be at these events yet, so that will be coming out in Friday's bulletin, and I can include Susanna's details in that.
The other thing, Isabel, is that, as Neil said, there's a cost. So we can't do everything all the time, but we'll try and do as much as we possibly can. What I've also indicated to officers is that I would like, I'm not criticising officers or people doing these events, but I want them to be more proactive, talking to people, and we have got some idea. We have this selfie picture frame and all the rest of it, just to lighten it a bit, rather than just being a council officer behind a desk or in front of a desk handing out forms. It's engaging more with the community, but we'd certainly welcome other events that we can go to.
What I'll do is I'll put together a list of events that I know are coming up, and then if you and Susanna select one you think is possible to go to and doesn't cost too many resources. But I think that would just be good for, like, Beer Alston's a large village, 3,000 people, it gets quite a bit of footfall, and then people will talk about that and go, oh, West Devon came, oh, they're approachable, I can connect with them, I can use the website easily, and that spreads out a bit.
Also, the other thing is that, as I said in my presentation, is the fact that we will be analysing the data from those events. So it won't be just handing out or broadcasting, as it's called sometimes. We want to get information back from the customer at the same time.
Councillor Ewing.
I'm going to be slightly radical now, just to cause a stir. Our locality budget has been put up to £1,000, and I think sometimes if we want the officers, the community development team, etc., to come to events, I should, all of those, that maybe the officers say, yes, we can come, but if you can put £100 towards the costs of us coming to help the council, if this really is your baby and you want it promoted, then actually put your money where your mouth is.
So, like renting a stall and covering the cost of the stall. Yeah, I thought that.
That is controversial. Councillor Ewing?
You knew you could rely on me, Chair.
We won't explore that anymore for the moment. Councillor Vachon, I must apologise to you. I've missed you several times.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm probably going to be controversial as well here. I'm really pleased that we've had a reprint of that old leaflet again to say who does what. Noticeably on social media, people still don't understand. They're not getting that information through. Even though we're producing leaflets and we're going to put it online, not everybody gets those leaflets. And this is my bugbear here. I think we discussed these leaflets going out with the council tax bills every year, and I think we should still be looking at that if that's not the case. These leaflets should be going out to the parish councils for distribution as well as distribution by our own members. We're still missing people. I think this is a big problem. Engaging with our community and our customers is our biggest thing we need to do, and we're not doing that fully. We're getting to 80% online, as you say, but the other 20% are probably on telephone. But there are quite a large amount of people we're not actually getting to because they don't have computers, they don't have telephone systems, and some of the people in the rural areas, as we discussed with broadband, haven't got that facility to get in touch with us. Outreach centres, we lost the outreach centre in Oakhampton a few years ago. You've got obviously your centre here, but Tavistock people use that. Where do Oakhampton people go? Well, they go to mainly the Citizens' Advice. You haven't discussed Citizens' Advice in here as one of the signposters for the people in the northern part of West Devon, and I think that's important. So how do we get this information that people can actually contact us who don't have electronic facilities?
Your last point first is that we have discussed citizens' advice as part of our discussions, and in the plan, it's working with stakeholders as citizens' advice, and as I mentioned before, possibly community libraries. Getting the information out is not just the councils. You know, we're almost falling into this trap now. We are the council, and there are 31 of us. So it's not just our engagement officers going to events. It is up to us as councillors to go to those events and have open surgeries and have meet your councillor events. And if anybody wants any copies, and parish councils, to take the information back to the parish councils. If you want a copy of these leaflets, let us know, and we will make sure you've got them. I can put I've got a great box full. If you want some through the pigeonholes, and you can take them to your parishes, and at any event where you live, you can discuss with your customers in your area.
Mr. Molyneux?
So I agree with what Councillor Moody said, but what I would say from my experience is I've got 3 hub members who are all passionate about the same thing, and I'm not including the leader in this. I've got Councillor Bridgewater, Councillor Elliott and Councillor Moody, who all want to do more in terms of engaging with our community. And Councillor Elliott, I thought, came up with a really good description of how to describe this in terms of you have supply side and demand side. You can tell she's an academic. And the supply side was all about who are our agencies, like Citizens Advice, who engage with our community. And the demand side was effectively who in our community are going to these agencies. And one of the pieces of work that the community development team are looking at is mapping that stakeholder engagement. And again, it was something that was picked up by the peer review in terms of you need to do more on community development and community engagement and working with your stakeholders. So it was picked up by the peer review team. It's something that we've been trying to address, and we only created the community development team a few months ago. The peer review team said, yes, that was the right thing to do, but now you need to get on with it. But we have a plan to try and do that, and it affects effectively 3 members: community wellbeing, community services and customer experience. It's all linked together. So I think we're absolutely committed to sorting it, but I agree we are not there yet, and we are missing people and missing engaging with agencies in some cases. But Councillor Moody made a really good point that actually the councillors are a key part of that as well. Councillor Vashon, do you want to feedback on that?
Just make a comment. Yes, I totally agree with that, and thank you for that, because I think that's quite an improvement, and I'm pleased that's something that should actually be done about it. It is mainly the sort of elderly, infirm, and very rural people which are the problem. Even as members, it's very difficult for us to get to them. Postal services are probably a lot easier, but I understand obviously postal expenses are out of our area. So if we're looking at it, I'm impressed. I'm pleased with that. Thank you.
Councillor Southcott.
Excuse me. Just to say, the original version of that I found very useful. We put a lot of them out around the ward to the parishes, and I'd like to do the same again with the new version. Including the local village shops where we've got them. We haven't got many of them, but there are a few around. Even the pubs.
So the way to get these is to ask you, is it? Yeah.
If you need we'll need them for the customer engagement events. So, but if you email me, then I'll make sure you get copies.
Councillor Saxby.
Okay, so wait, just to check, I'll email you for those leaflets and you'll leave a bunch in the pigeonhole.
If you want, if that's the easiest way to communicate, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so
But I don't think we will be posting them out or DPDing them or other companies.
I think it's a great idea to automate, so this is something completely different, but I wrote it down, to automate the form filling in. So people send an email, they fill out the form, it automates it and then goes into the system to track, because if you're not measuring it, how do you know your progress on it? So will we receive an update next meeting on how that's been implemented? Or could we receive an update next meeting on the implementation of that?
I've just been looking at the forward plan, which is the last item on the agenda, and the next meeting potentially is massively oversubscribed, but we can do an email update as to all the committee members probably in September to say where we're up to in terms of progress.
Yep.
If that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Any other questions? Councillor Saxby?
What's this customer contract? I mean, so how will people sign it? Do they sign it? I've never heard of it before, so I'm wondering how that would work. Is it just if they need to collect a new bin, or is it everybody in the borough who would need to go, I will put my bins out? So just wondering what it is.
I'll pass this over to Steve.
Thank you. So it's not a contract per se. It was more of a setting an expectation that almost what we will do as a council for you, but what we would expect you to do for us. So, and it's something that's been very successfully rolled out in a number of authorities. The most famous example is called the Wigan Deal. And it is literally a postcard that basically says, if you do this, 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 and this, then we will respond in this. We'll empty your bins. We'll make sure that there's, availability of children's centres and so on. I mean, it was wide ranging, and of course, Wigan is a unitary authority, so had all the social care and this, that, and the other. But the principle of a simple way of saying, this is what we need you to do, residents. We don't need you throwing litter on the floor. We don't need you doing this, but what we want you to do is, treat people respectfully and so on. And then we will do these things. And it worked really well.
Wow, great.
So it was something, we'd not finalised it yet, but it's something that we were looking at in terms of, could we do something similar that would engage with people and be really simple, not speaking council language, but actually speaking people language.
Sorry.
No, go on.
I was just going to make the comment, I think Jeff is offering to deliver these leaflets to people's pubs around the area. It's a good way of doing a pub crawl, Jeff. I like your thinking. As long as you don't claim it on expenses, that's the main thing. But I'm more...
If you pay.
Oh, right. No, I don't think that's the offer. I'd like to say, in terms of talking about these customer contracts, we had something very similar in education. When we had children's contracts, we're looking about roles, responsibilities, contracts with parents, contracts for the children, that expectations and that. And I have to say, it did help with behaviour and discipline, that sort of thing. So it is something that I would welcome. And it's a pretty straightforward thing to do as well. And it just gives people the option, they've got to take more responsibility, but we will also reciprocate in terms of what we do. So I think that is a good way forward. Do like that.
Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, that is... Councillor West, so will it go out by a postal drop to everybody? How will it reach everybody? What will the format... Oh, okay, so...
Yeah, I'm going to say, so my suggestion would be there will be an advisory group at some point. That would be the format where members could develop that, bring it back, and we'll go through the process in terms of what we do. But, yeah, we're not going to be posting it out, I don't think.
Okay. I guess my feedback on that is just keep it really simple. I mean, if a unitary authority did it, we can definitely do it and just keep it simple. People are so concerned and worried about lots of other things. They don't need an additional thing to think about because some bloody council is telling them what to do. Like, keep it simple and focused on the benefits to them if they do it.
Thank you very much for that. Just before you say anything, Steve, and thanks for the support for that idea. I think it's an idea that's got some legs, I think, and if we develop it properly, but I'm looking forward to the advisory group meetings where we can kick that ball around, and also kick the ball around, Paul, about the 20% of people who don't contact us. And going back to that point, we do still offer a home visit service for people who are disabled and can't get to one of our centres or can't contact us any other way. So that is an option as well. Sorry.
I just want to comment. So interestingly, so what Steve was saying about, Mr. Mullin was saying about supply and demand, that actually the demand that we see, so the home visit process, we rolled it out quite slowly to begin with, and we've pushed it, the CST have it regularly pushed them to offer it when they think it would be appropriate and when it would be useful. And the uptake isn't great. A lot of people aren't that interested in home visits. They don't want council officers in their home. So whereas we think it's a good service, actually a lot of people, that's not the service that they want. Same, we have an office visit process. People can ask to come for a meeting in the council when we're not open. I don't think it's ever been used, because every time we've tried to use it, the service area has rung the customer up and just dealt with it over the phone. So there's no need for the person to come in. So it's interesting, we offer services, but what our customers want isn't necessarily what we think they want. We had an issue recently where we had some issues with the phones. A third of the people that would normally ring us moved straight onto web chats, and we dealt with a third of those people straight away with web chats. And actually, it was probably a really good training opportunity to train the customers to get used to that thing, and probably half those people will contact us on web chats again next time rather than ring us, because it's an easy, simple way of doing it. So it's really trying to understand what customers want from us. It's hard because we offer some services and we expect them to use, but not necessarily wanted.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really keen that these leaflets get out to people, and I've already asked Councillor Moody if he can let me have 17. I'm doing the next update to the Town Council, which is part of our duty as a Borough Councillor to give information about the Borough Council to our towns and parishes, and as part of my report I will be physically giving out these leaflets to each member of the Town Council. So I think there's great opportunities there, and I mean I know a lot of people go to lots of parish council meetings, so it's a good way to get it out.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you very much. I wouldn't have thought of that. Councillor Vashon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that about the home visit. I mean, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, though. That people have to know about this before they can actually access that and ask for that. And I'm all in favour of Councillor Moody's pub crawl to get leaflets out. I will sponsor that.
And so, Councillor Moody, I would say that we've got our first volunteer in Councillor Sachs before your advisory group, it sounded like to me. So
it does,
I think you can get us signed up now.
I just want to...
Just before you do, Chair, I was just going to say, in my car at the moment, I've got these leaflets. I will, after this meeting, when I finish here, I'll go down and collect a handful and put them in everyone's pigeonhole. I'll probably, I don't know, 20, 30 each, is that whatever, should be sufficient. And I'll give some to you, Anne, as well.
Thank you very much. We were talking about services that customers don't want. I think the home visit service, we must remember, this might be one person in a house, so they will never show up in statistics, so, and it's invaluable to them, and I've seen it work. For somebody, I couldn't find any other way to help. So
we have no plans of removing the home visits.
No, but I just don't want it to be judged on numbers, that's all. Are there any other questions? We have Councillor Casbob.
Yeah, good afternoon. You mentioned about the possibility of linking the Devon County Council system with ours where you can log potholes. One of the failings that the Devon website currently has is that when you use it on your mobile phone, you can't actually use the locator symbol to find out where you are. So we would need to get that sorted out, because otherwise we are making our own back.
All we do is we have a link to Devon County.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to the West Devon website and they want to they've contacted the council. If they want to log a pothole, the link on the button on our front page goes straight to the DCC website.
Yeah, but my point would be is that we need to be on the back of Devon County Council, because despite it being raised with them at least a dozen times, that their website for registering potholes is failing because you can't locate it. As much as our link would work, the problem that they've got is you can't locate where the pothole is properly.
I think that's an issue. I don't think West Devon has a responsibility for chasing Devon County. It's something that needs to be taken up with the Devon County officer or directly with Devon County and to see what, because otherwise...
I respectfully disagree. We are, as a West Devon Borough Council, we should be on the back of West Devon and chasing this and getting them to sort their website out so that it works. Sorry, for Devon County to sort it out. As much as it is their problem, I totally agree, but it's our customers that are reporting the issue.
Shall I ask one of the officers to answer this question, Mr. Molyneux?
Can I just ask, are we not able as a committee to write to Devon County Council and point out this issue and ask them for an update on it?
So we have invited Devon County Council to talk about roads and drainage to the next meeting. I don't believe they've confirmed that they're attending yet, but we can do it there. The other thing I would say, Councillor Casbolt, is there are 4 county council members that represent West Devon, and I would be flagging it to them.
Councillor Southcott, was there something you would like to add? I think we should finish fairly soon.
On that issue of the pothole reported, that map used to work beautifully, and when the volume got high, they disabled that function. And I've complained bitterly about it to highways on numerous occasions. With no avail.
I just feel sorry for the software developers. Yeah. So we have a recommendation here. Are we all right to move on? Sorry.
May I just add that maybe we shouldn't be having this link to Devon County Council, because actually I've got the point that Councillor Casbolt is making. It's reputationally not good for us. We will be associated, because we've got a click of the button, we will be associated with something that's not working, and actually reputationally for us that won't do us any favours. So I would suggest that we don't have anything connected until we know it's working properly.
We have had this discussion ad nauseum. Would one of the officers like to respond, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, on one of the comments of the report was actually possibly making the Devon County links a different colour, or external agencies a different colour, so it looks different, because it doesn't. I mean, we're on the website at the moment, and it looks exactly the same as all of our other links. It is a problem. I mean, a number of years ago, I think we could send the data directly to Devon County, and we had the discussion about is it worth letting people submit reports, whole reports on our website, and we just send Devon County the data. But the problem is that forms even more of a link, doesn't it, of us and them. So, but I think changing the colour of the buttons is a good idea, so at least looks different.
I think changing the buttons is a good idea on the surface, but when somebody is sat there trying to do this, they'll be moaning about West Devon. They won't be moaning about Devon County. And reputationally, I would not like us to go down that road.
Councillor West?
Can I just say I agree with you, Councillor Ewing. I know on social media there are a number of comments, and the perception out there is very much that we are responsible for potholes. In fact, we're getting backhanded, so the potholes aren't being done. And that is great reputational harm to the whole system as it stands. We are being tarred with, for use the phrase, tarred with the same brush, and that's not what we're about at West Devon.
So, I'm going to suggest, with Councillor Kimber's permission here, that we potentially add a recommendation to the report. Councillor Ewins, are you listening? Sorry.
Looking at potholes with Mr. Powell.
So, I agree with what you're saying, and if members are happy, I would propose we actually change and remove the link and say, go to the Devon County Council website, we are not responsible. we can then monitor that and report back if we get people complaining to us, and we can see what the impact is. So I was going to say we could add a recommendation, we could do something decisive apart from noting the report, and actually make that change as part of the discussion in terms of reputation of the council and its services.
Councillor Southcott, we love this subject, don't we?
Yes. I will second that motion.
Can you say propose it, because I'm not allowed to propose it.
Oh,
and
right.
then, so I was just suggesting that might be a motion.
Right. I propose that suggestion by Mr. Molyneux is carried through, and I will second that.
Do you want to put that suggestion into words? Do you do it later?
We'll do that later if that's okay,
Yeah.
Chair.
Okay then. So we have two recommendations, which I think we can just do together. To note the progress update against the customer experience and accessibility section of the council plan, and to agree to that suggestion. Are we all happy with that? Thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming to talk to us. We appreciate that. We're interested in far too many things. It is good. Do we have a verbal update on the Wildlife Warden scheme, please?
You can, Chairman. It's quite a quick update, but just to update with positive news that our Wildlife Warden Coordinator has now joined the council. Her name is Emma, Emma Checkley, who joined us at the beginning of June. Now, members will be aware that she is doing 2 days a week, so she's 6 days into the role, effectively, although we're at the end of the month. So it is still an early phase. But I think it's fair to say already she's making effective links, certainly internally. As you can imagine, there's only so much you can do in 6 days. But at the moment, she's understanding from others, such as Rob Sekula and Adam Williams, what we're already doing as a council, and working with Councillor Mann in terms of what the coordinator scheme might look like, as well as coming up with some unique branding for the scheme so that when we do launch it and promote it, it's very clear what it is. So that's the phase she's at the moment. And one of the things that you'll all get as members in the next couple of weeks is a quick form to fill out. It's optional, but actually it's really important for Emma that she can understand from you who are the key players in your organisations that are working to support nature recovery, or it might be they're involved in a local community pond, those sorts of things. Who are the individuals and who are the key groups? We can pick out the key. There are some large organisations working across West Devon, we know about those, but I suspect there are loads of people in your local wards that are working in this space that actually would be interested in potentially becoming wildlife wardens, which is a voluntary role. So effectively, it's just linking them up. So the proposal would be that we bring together people already working in this space and share skills, share training. I mean, Emma is an ecologist. That's her background. So that's really where we are at the moment. Also, just to update members that we've agreed with Devon Wildlife Trust that we will host a Wild in Devon event at Kilworthy Park on Saturday the 28th of September. Which will offer sort of 50 places to, again, individuals that are working to support nature recovery across the borough. So more information to follow on that. But they're keen to hold an event in Tavistock, so we said, come to Kilworthy.
That's great. Councillor Daniel?
I'm really pleased to hear that we've got the Wildlife Warden and that the scheme will be up and running. I think that's really great news for us, really successful. And just wanted to extend an invitation to Emma to attend Green Drinks in Oakhampton, where all the people that are involved in sustainable Oakhampton and green Oakhampton, plastic-free Oakhampton congregate once a month. They'd really love to meet her if she would able to come just for half an hour on, I think it's the third Wednesday of the month, something like that. But I wondered if we could extend that invitation. That would be great.
Absolutely, I will do, Councillor Daniel, and that is certainly one of the things we're looking to capture through the sort of quick form that we send out to members is what's already existing, because this is not about the council coming in and stepping on other people's toes where things are working really effectively. It's just about us doing all we can to support those existing groups and perhaps help them network further.
Thank you very much. Just can you warn her that Green Drinks, you have to bring your own drink. It's a fantastic event, but it doesn't include drinks. Councillor West.
I'm just interested, Neil, considering what we've talked about accessibility with Oakhampton not having accessible links, I think also if we can arrange some sort of event in Oakhampton, I appreciate what Lynn said about meeting the groups, but if we're doing something in here within TAVI, is there a possibility that we look at something happening in Oakhampton?
Possibly, Councillor West. I mean, it's actually a Devon Wildlife Trust event that they were looking for a venue, and we said use Kilworthy, but it's certainly something we can think about for the future. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Would it be possible to have another update at our next meeting in October, please?
Yes, we can do that. And actually, Emma would love to be here today, but because she's working 2 days a week, she had some long-standing commitments, and she does work for another council, not in Devon. But yes, certainly, and we'll get her along to the next meeting so that she can update you on the progress of the scheme.
We're all happy with that? Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think we're moving on to task and finish group updates now. We have new members on this committee, so you're very welcome to join one of these task and finish groups. So just please let us know if you'd like to. We have we have the leisure task and finish group, which Councillor Vachon chairs. But he wasn't able to make the last meeting. But just so you all know, there's a visit to the leisure centres on the 16th of July. So everybody's welcome to come to them. And I think we're starting in Tavistock and then moving up to Oakhampton. And they've both got cafes now. So there's every reason to attend. The other thing is we had a discussion about parking and parking concessions at Tavistock and Oakhampton. And I think we're waiting for feedback from officers about costs and things. Is that right? I can't remember very clearly. Chris is going to talk about the South West Water Working Group, which he's chairing.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you to those members that did turn up online or in person. The first thing we were looking at, what really our scope would be, and Councillor Guthrie felt the approach whereby we have contact with the Devon Rivers Trust, the Dart River Trust, and the North Devon Biosphere Group for their rivers to identify what issues or problems they are aware of or are actually acting. And we felt then that if we have contact with those, I think Steve was going to deal with the Dart and Devon, South Devon, and Patrick was going to, Councillor Kimber was going to do North Devon Biosphere, just to get engagement, to see what's out there, what's going on. I then have actually had a conversation with Councillor Viney, who is online, and I asked Councillor Viney to come in a minute to look at how the impact of farming on water and that, and actually when Councillor Viney spoke to me, I thought, okay, right, we might have to reset the whole thing. So I hope, Nick, if you're online, can you just sort of give us a few of your ideas, conversations we had this morning, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, just, with regard to water, it's impossible to draw boundaries. Water does not respect boundaries. So to look at things in isolation and in a sort of a very focused point of view, then it's very hard. We really have to look at the whole water cycle, and so if we and to do that, we could sort of follow a raindrop then that fell on Dartmoor, for example, and how that travelled down through the catchments and back out to the sea. It's and really, what's happening to that along the way. Sorry, I've got COVID and I'm croaking. And my brain's gone. Yeah, so just to say, we have, instead of our kind of approach with South West Water, perhaps that might be a little bit confrontational. What I would like to see as West Devon as an organisation is an opportunity really to create something very positive around water. We've got a massive skill set that, some of the people that Chris listed there, West Country Rivers Trust, there's a huge amount of work already done and being done, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. But it is very difficult to to start sort of chopping the water up as a topic. So I would really love to see something more Devon-wide, if we imagine that 12 rivers rise on Dartmoor, and then how that web goes out and into the county of Devon. I feel like with collaboration, we could do something very optimistic, yes, very challenging, but instead of just going head to head with organisations and trying to repeat the same patterns, maybe we could think outside the box a little bit and yeah, really be a bit creative about it. I'm actually working on a film for the Environment Agency and with a Farming in Protected Landscapes grant, which covers this topic. But yeah, I would love to feel like we could be really a force for something positive around water.
Okay, thanks, Nick. That's really appreciated. Councillor Varney, that's really appreciated. If I just carry on then, just explain that. So bearing in mind what Councillor Varney is saying, we then wanted to look at, and Councillor Southcott mentioned the issues there around that, how the infrastructure, how we have the water treatment plants and that are there, but they're not coping necessarily with what's going on, and the reasons behind that, be that rainfall, be that too many housing developments going on. And that then brought us to our planning department and what powers we have within our own planning department to actually challenge some of the developments and looking at what is the impact of runoff, for instance. So we know if you go to a hard surface of driveways and roads, that will obviously have an impact on runoff and how it's treated, and whether we have any powers to look at the infrastructure to make sure the infrastructure is there and able to cope with the amounts coming off. And the other issue, of course, is around rainwater through guttering going into the sewerage system. That, to some extent, helps flush the system, if you pardon the expression, but it also creates problems in the system further down. And another interesting point which somebody raised is, are there systems, older technology like reed beds in existing water plants that could be reinstated to help the flow of the water? So there's a whole range of issues there. We are actually meeting on the 9th to go further with this. So if anybody would like to come along to that meeting, it's on the 9th of July at 9 a.m. That would be great. And then we have a view to talk to the Environmental Agency and discuss what we're thinking about with them before we go, hopefully, to a meeting with South West Water in September, Chair.
Yeah.
End of.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, where is the meeting? Is it here or is it online?
Both.
Online.
Or here.
9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's hybrid meeting, I think.
Yeah.
So does anybody want to volunteer to join one of these two groups, Leisure or South West Water, while we're here? Yeah, that'll be great. Be really good to have your input. Thank you, Councillor Daniel. There was also a KPIs working group, which we've already heard about today, and that's only going to reconvene if necessary, but we'll be seeing the new KPIs so we can decide whether to reconvene that if we want to. I think that's all for task and finish groups. So let's have a look at the annual work programme. I think our next meeting is in October. Do we have 2 thematic updates there?
We do, Chair, and I've just been looking at the agenda already. It's crowded, and we've just invited, or we're going to invite CDS along, and bearing in mind we had half an hour discussion without CDS being there, I suspect that we might need to rejig the agenda. I'm also wondering whether we rejig the thematic updates, and if we've got an update from the Wildlife Warden, whether we do the climate change thematic update at the same time, so there's a bit of a theme. But I think we might have to look at, if we want Devon County to come, which I think we've been trying for a long time to get them along, and I think we should continue to try. I think we're just going to have to look at potentially rejigging that, so we can have a separate conversation if you're happy with that, Chair, and the committee's happy with that approach.
Yeah. Councillor Daniel?
I just wanted to say, are we meeting often enough if we've got really crowded agendas that are going to take a long time, and we want to have thorough discussions, don't we? I mean, that's the whole point of having overview and scrutiny, is that we have time to do the overview and scrutiny process. So should we be thinking of having more frequent meetings? Because we've got a long gap now, haven't we, between now and October?
We
That's
have.
a suggestion.
We have, and thank you, Councillor Daniel. But the original issue that we had was, because we try and organise all the meetings on a Tuesday and we have planning committee on a Tuesday, is that we run out of available days where you haven't got multiple meetings, and the leader made a specific request to try and basically make sure that we didn't have more than one meeting on a Tuesday. So because otherwise, if it's a DM committee or an audit committee and it goes on 3 hours or so, then to go into another committee in the afternoon is sort of, the view was it was potentially just lowering the quality of the decision making, because people are brain dead by the time they've analysed all that information. Whether we could just extend this, make it an earlier start time and go with a break in between, so that there's a 15-minute break. That might be a way if we've got a big agenda.
But I would say we're all working people, or have been working people, used to working 8-hour days. You know, this 2 committee meetings a day isn't onerous, is it? Anyway, if there's a decision being made, but I think we need to bear it in mind, because of the things that have been generated today by our discussions, and we all want to take part and bring our views and show to our residents that we discuss things thoroughly. So, yes.
Councillor Saxby?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot has come up and it's important, and a lot of things have been waiting, like if we look at potholes, broadband. So I'm pro splitting the meeting in 2 so we could get a full discussion, or having 2 meetings in the same, because I like having a big break, don't get me wrong, over the summer, but maybe if we split it in 2, or I'd be happy with that, because it would be worth having those discussions instead of dragging it out another few months whilst people are they're suffering. Some people are suffering. We in this room aren't, but our residents are. Yeah. So I'm pro splitting it in 2 or something like that.
So Caspar?
I would just, I suppose from my perspective, because I have a full-time job, I've taken a half day to do, in essence, or only use 2 hours for this. So if we know that we're going to have a potentially, either we know we've got a long agenda, or actually this one could be stretched out, then I see no problem with starting at, say, 1 o'clock and running through till 5 if needs be. Because to me, that's better use of my time, because, you know, I'm taking half a day unpaid to do 2 hours worth of council work. And I'd rather do a bit more and get more done for our constituents and for our customers. So that doesn't necessarily mean that applies to everybody, but that might just be something that we might want to consider.
I think Councillor Guthrie has a comment, I think.
I'd just like to agree with Councillor Casbolt. I think trying to squeeze another day in is difficult for people that have got a lot of other agendas, but to keep the meeting longer to make sure we cover things thoroughly is the best way forward.
Yeah, okay then, so if the agenda gets bigger, we think about extending the meeting rather than moving it on to a separate meeting. And anybody else want to have a different view on that?
I'd just say that we need to make sure there is a good break in the centre, maybe for 15, 20 minutes, comfort break. We need a comfort break, clear the brain, have a cup of tea, have a natter.
Yeah.
Have the start date from start time as 1 o'clock, so that those that have to do half day and then have to travel into the office here,
I suppose
remotely.
I suppose that might stand on what else business is going on, Steve, on that day in the short term, but hopefully.
Happy to try and sort that out, and I'm looking at the forward plan. I would say that will definitely be the 15th of October meeting, and it will also be the January meeting, because the January meeting is where the proposed budget comes to overview and scrutiny. So I would say those 2 meetings, I would say we will confirm, but expect an earlier start time, and we'll go with that approach.
Thank you very much. So are we happy that we prioritise, with the priorities we're putting on the October meeting that Steve outlined just now? Are you happy if we go with that? Okay, so we'll see what we end up with and how long the meeting is. I think that's the last item on the agenda, is it? Going back up to the top to check. Yes, it is. So I think we can close the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance and your interest and the discussion. It's been very enjoyable. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.